Flip, 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 flip weekly.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Flip Weekly podcast. My name is Matt, I am your host, and this is a podcast all about reselling. We go to thrift stores, which are still a great place to thrift in 2026. We go to garage sales very rarely when they're on, but we still go there, and we go and pick up items from Facebook Marketplace, all to make some money so that we can buy ourselves and our partners nice things. Am I right? Now, what an amazing week. We have got my biggest flip of all time. You'll remember my previous greatest flip was a collection of Sonic the Hedgehog books that I found in Vinnie's. We paid $60 and we turned it into $1,600. Guess what? We have surpassed that record. We've surpassed it. We have a bigger flip than $1,600. This is absurd. We're not buying things and selling them for $20. We're selling them for more than $1,599.95. Bonkers. This is absolute bonkers, right? Bonkers. I still can't believe it. I can't believe somebody paid this much money for what it is. I'm going to tell you what it is just a tiny bit later. We're telling a story here, right? We're going from point A to point B to point C. We're going to be telling a story. Now, we've also got a hell of a lot of other stuff to get through, right? Like, we still have picked up items. They're going to pale in comparison because it's hard to flip things for more than $1,600 on a regular basis. But every single thing that I have flipped in this episode has sold for over $100, including one that's like a $500 flip in 24 hours. It's sort of like glossed over, right? It's just glossed over because we have to talk about this insane flip. We also have finds that are incredibly rare. They're going to be sold for hundreds of dollars. But look, this episode is all about the greatest flip. We're going to get into it. First, I want to say thank you to everyone who has given the Flip Weekly Compass a go. This is something that I released last week. It's like a web app. It's basically a web page where you go to flipweekly.com/compass, click a button, and it tells you where the nearest thrift store op shop is. We've had a lot of people give it a go. A lot of messages too saying you should make this into an app. I'm looking into it. I've been talking to my brother-in-law and we've been thinking of like working on something together, and this could be it. I have so many different ideas for software, for apps that can help people in our position, us as resellers. It's just a matter of finding the time to work on it. Because look, Flip Weekly is a 7-day deadline, like for the rest of our lives, right? Every single week we have a 7-day deadline. We need to find things, we need to sell things, we need to write about them, we need to talk about them, we need to edit it all together every single week, 7 days. We're not complaining, but we need to find extra time to work on this other stuff. But thank you to everyone who has given the Compass a go. I find it a bit of fun. I used it myself this week when I did a marketplace pickup. I said to the lady, she was moving house, and she was like, I've been going back and forth to Vinnie's, just donating stuff. You can have this, you can have that. And I was like, there's a Vinnie's close by, isn't there? She said, yes. I brought up my phone, I clicked the button, I saw it was like 300 meters away. So I jumped in my car, because I ain't walking 300 meters. Jumped in my car, drove there, found nothing, but it doesn't matter. The app came in handy. Well, the web page came in handy. Maybe in the future it's an app. But I digress. We need to talk about what I bought this week, what I sold this week. We need to talk about the greatest flip. Should we just get into what I bought? We should just do it. What I bought for the week, followed by what I sold. Let's go. So the week started out sort of strong. You know, I haven't been having the best luck lately when I go to Savers. I've always said these guys they're just too good at their jobs, and I find it really difficult to find, cool staff. It's all being picked over. The staff, by the way, are walking throughout the shop wearing their vintage t-shirts, and it's a rub in the face, right? But we did get lucky, because what I found, it's something that is not available to the retail public, or has never been available to the retail public. And that's what I like, because Flip Weekly, it's all about buying things that is sort of risky, right? Buying things that are rare, they're hard to find. They do sell, but sometimes they can, take a while to sell. because we need to find the right buyer. But yeah, in Savers, we found something very, very cool. But when I first saw it, I had no idea what it is because I spotted what looked to be like your standard jewelry ring box, right? And on top of it, on top of this black jewelry ring box was the Lucasfilm logo. And that's immediately going to get my attention. You know why it's going to get my attention? If you're a Star Wars nerd, if you're a movie nerd, you will know Lucasfilm in charge of Star Wars. You know, are they in charge of Star Wars now that Disney has bought it? Are they in collaboration? Lucasfilm, I just know, belongs to that brand. So I saw this like nicely presented jewelry ring box with the black Lucasfilm logo on top. And I'm like, this is getting a look. This is getting my eyes. I get close to it and I see on one side of it that it said Lucasfilm Crew 2025. And my ears prick up like this is a green flag. I turn it around a bit and I see a Star Wars quote. The quote says, "The Force is strong with this one." Now at this point, man, I'm not thinking about I'm in for a payday. I'm not expecting to open this up and see like a 9 carat, 24 carat, I don't know how carats work, gold plated like Star Wars ring. I'm just intrigued what is inside of this box. Like what's in the box, right? And why is it here on this level of Savers? Why is it like placed among the puzzles? Is this like a Lucasfilm puzzle? I don't know. I turn it around. I turn the box around again. You're thinking, how many sides does this thing have? I see the brand name Craig Hill. And then it has this graphic that looks like an everlasting gobstopper, right? So I'm like, okay, that's weird. It must be some sort of puzzle. I open it up and I see what's inside of it. I'm like, well, this doesn't really help me because inside are like these 6 gold brass finger looking objects. Like they're 10 centimeters long. They have grooves, they have indents. And if you look closely, they have markings. And those markings say Lucasfilm and Craig Hill. They're the logos for these companies. And I'm thinking, well, these have a lot of weight to them. They've obviously taken a lot of time to make. There's effort being put into it. And then I see underneath these finger things, there's a small piece of paper and they have instructions on them. And the instructions say to position these brass fingers in a certain way, they're going to join together and they're going to look like that gobstopper thing that's on the box. So, okay, it's a puzzle. It's like a puzzle ornament thing. It's something to frustrate a puzzle doer, which isn't me. Have I mentioned before how much I cannot stand puzzles? So I buy it, I take it home, I do a bit of research, and I find out that this Craig Hill company is a design and manufacturing studio based in Brooklyn in the US, and their entire thing is about creating like high quality pieces ranging from like money clips to wine openers to desk puzzles. Their entire focus though is on like the design, the aesthetic, and just using really high quality materials. Like this is called a Jack puzzle. And on their website right now, you can buy it for $98 US, convert that over to our currency, and you'll be able to see that it's an expensive puzzle. You can see on their website some puzzles have sold out, but the underlying theme here is that they're very expensive and they're made with expensive materials. But then we come back to our item. We're not just buying a puzzle. We have a Star Wars crew gift from 2025 because Lucasfilm, they partnered with this company Craig Hill, and they produced and manufactured a limited run of these Star Wars themed puzzles, and they gifted that stuff to their crew. They gifted these puzzles to their crew for their work on the films throughout the year. I'm guessing this particular crew member, they would have preferred, a raise, a cash gift, because this one's ended up being donated to Savers. And you know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of hearing from friends and family about all of the gifts, all of the Christmas bonuses they've got throughout the years. I remember one distinctly. It was my mum. She said, and I'm not even kidding, that they gave her a $5 coffee voucher for Christmas one year. A $5 Christmas gift. $5 to use at the cafe across the street. I would be so angry if I received that. I would rather get nothing. Just pretend that you forgot all about it. Give me a $5 cafe voucher. That is so insulting. You know, a bloody pizza party would be better than this. So now I guess I posit to you, would you have preferred like this little puzzle, like this little, it's finicky, I tried to do it. I tried to do it for the listing to take photos. I thought it would look better. I think I lasted maybe 5 minutes. I tried to do it, man. I lasted about 5 minutes. I don't know if they're supposed to slot in. They don't have like grooves that slot in and they stay there. It feels like you're supposed to have like, 8 arms like an octopus to hold all these little things in place. And then once you connect like the 6th finger, it all locks together. You put 2 together, they don't stay like that. It must be pressure based. I don't know. I tried to do it. I gave it 5 minutes of my time and then I thought, no, I'm not going to bother. But anyway, whenever I come across stuff like this, movie crew items, I'm always intrigued and there's always going to be a collector's market for it. You'll remember, like, it was only a few weeks ago. Do you remember the Pirates of the Caribbean special effects crew t-shirt that I bought? I picked it up in Lifeline for like $12. It sold 3 days later for $80, and that was to a Johnny Depp impersonator too. So there's always going to be a market. I mean, you're not always going to get impersonators that are buying it, but people love this sort of stuff. If you're buying it for, your favorite movie, and then when you think about Star Wars, how big the collector's market is for Star Wars, man, it's going to get a bit of attention, right? But anyway, I would never buy this thing. Buying puzzles is the worst idea you can ever have. Like, why are you giving yourself another problem that needs solving? Do you not have enough problems in your life? I know that I do. As a middle-aged white man living in Sydney, I have so many problems. But regardless, I take a look on eBay once I get this home. Did I mention how much I paid for it yet? I think it was like $4.50. It wasn't much. It was under $5. Yeah, $4.49. I can see 2 comps on eBay. I can't see anything that's sold, but 2 active listings, one in Canada and one in the US. The one in Canada is listed for $330 and the one in the US is listed for $627. Now they've all got watchers on them. I think there's like 6 people watching it and I think it's pretty cool, so I don't mind picking it up. I listed mine on eBay Australia for $250. I chucked it on Marketplace as well. On Marketplace, it's going off, man. It's gotten hundreds and hundreds of views on Marketplace, doing really well over there. And I'm guessing it's because, like, my main photo, if you are, like, zoomed out just a tiny bit, it looks like they're bullets. Like, they look like Star Wars-themed bullets. So I think that gets people's attention. But that would be a good sale, when it eventually sells to a Star Wars collector. $4.50 into $250. But speaking of big money, not Star Wars related, this actually has sold comps, which is nice. We have a set of DVDs, couple of boring DVDs, 6 that I picked up in a Vinnie's for $4 each, but they're listed up for big money. Now, this is series 1 to 6 of the History Channel's documentary series called Gangland. Now, this was a documentary that followed America's street gangs, and the show is pretty notorious for putting these criminals on TV, but it's also notorious for being very, very difficult to watch online. Like, you can find an episode or 2 on YouTube. You can maybe even get lucky with like an odd season on a streaming platform, but if you want to watch it all, you need the DVD. And this is one thing I like to do when I find something a bit rare is, I don't know if it's a bit sick of me to do this, but I go online to see if people are like complaining about not being able to find it. And I went onto Reddit and somebody said, and I quote, "I just spent an hour looking for any platform with these episodes. It's literally nowhere online. I read you have to buy the DVDs." A fan would sympathize, empathize with these people. Oh, it's so sorry. Like, it's hard to find this show. It must suck. But as a reseller, I'm like, I have the goods. This is good for me. I'll put it online. You can buy it off me. And I like doing that when it comes to rare items. I love going online and seeing people, complaining about not being able to find it. For every person that complains they can't find it, that they get a bit sad, my heart just grows like one size bigger. But anyway, it comes down to the rights of the DVD. That's why it's hard to buy. Just like Malcolm in the Middle from, last week or the week before, which eventually sold, by the way. 3rd time was the charm. And it also comes down to the violence in these episodes, because people loved watching this show on the History Channel. But, you know, like every single show that was being produced on DVD, the sales at the time, they slowed down. People weren't rushing out to buy them, especially History Channel stuff. Now they're all out of print. They're nowhere online. And so what do? You have to use a secondary market. You have to use eBay. It's your only choice. And because of that, this thing is worth boatloads of money. I'm looking at a comp right now, and it's an anomaly because it should be higher. The absolute cheapest you can get this show on DVD, complete 1 to 7, is $400. There is a sold comp for $295. That is the anomaly. But the absolute cheapest right now, $424.99, which has come down from $4.99. It has 10 people watching it. So when we see these sort of comps, I'm thinking, you know, I found 1 to 6. They were $4 each. I ended up checking the receipt. She only charged me for 5 of them. Maybe she couldn't do the maths, because I got charged $20.50 because I got one of their brown bags. $20 I paid. I'm thinking I list these up for $300. 1 to 6, $300. There's no competition except for that 1 to 7 for $425. And I'm only into these DVDs for like $20. So 20 into $300, that sounds good to me. I've never watched the show before. It sounds interesting though, following along street gangs. I also think, like, when you're a documentary crew and you're following along criminals, if you see them committing a crime, what is your responsibility? Do you not have to report the crime? There is no way you can just say, you know, we're filming a documentary, we turn a blind eye. Like, if you see somebody get murdered on this show and you're filming it, that's going to be evidence in the future, right? Or is there some sort of, it's not is it client customer privilege? I don't know how it works, but that it would have to be turned over for evidence. So I can't imagine being in a street gang committing crime and then allowing documentary people to come in and film. It seems like a really, really dumb idea. If you're committing crimes, maybe don't have them all filmed. It's how you get in trouble. Anyway, moving on, we go past Vinny's. And we come into another thrift store, and I thought I hit the bloody jackpot. You notice I'm switching my swearing out too. I was visiting my my family for the first time in a while, and I try and alter, you know, the swearing so that I don't cuss in front of my niece and nephew, because they might repeat it back and then I'll get in trouble. But anyway, yeah, I thought I hit the jackpot. I found a pair of shoes in Vinny's for $35. And when I say a jackpot, I mean like very, very big jackpot. These were, without a doubt, the ugliest pair of shoes I've ever seen. Now, I'm going to tell you what they are. If you know what they are, you're going to agree with me. If you haven't, I want you to pause the podcast and Google what these are, okay? They are called the Balenciaga Hard Crocs. So I'll give you a second to Google that. Balenciaga Hard Crocs. Now, these were a collaboration between Balenciaga and Crocs. Should never have happened. And when you look at these, you're going to agree with me. It's like, picture the ugliest man, the ugliest woman you've ever seen in your life. Them, you know, getting together, having a baby. Should never happen, right? You need somebody that's, you know, you need like a 6 and a 4 to get together. Then you can get like a 5. You don't want like 2 2s getting together and producing a 1. It's just me rating people's looks, which you really shouldn't do. But these were goddamn ugly, man. The ugliest things I've ever seen. And I've been to Central Coast RSL clubs on a Friday night. These were worth a gamble though. I thought they looked real. I looked them over. I took the gamble. They were $1,000 pair of shoes. Sold comps on eBay. Balenciaga Hard Crocs. $1,000. And look, I don't know anything about high fashion. $1,000 for a pair of shoes though, that's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Like, I've talked to enough factories in China in my time to know that the markup on these shoes are going to be insane. Enough to make me physically ill. More ill than when I go to those Central Coast RSL clubs. The markup is just insane, man. So I bought these. I bought them to go along with my unguided expedition into fashion, and I made sure to keep the tags on them. I made sure to keep the receipt because I had a plan. And my plan was to utilize a website called Legit Grails. to have them authenticated. So for $15, I could pay legit Grails and their team will look over all the photos that I send in, and they're going to tell me whether I'm looking at like $1,000 payday or if I'm looking to go back to Vinny's to take them back and get a refund. A very controversial trip back, right? So I submit them for verification on legit Grails and it came back. I get an email from them and they say, here's your authenticity certificate. And I'm thinking, well, okay, must be real. No, they're fake. They're fake. For some reason, they give you a certificate to say that they're fake. Like I'm supposed to print it out and hang it up on the wall or take them back to Vinny's and show them that they're fake. Pretty, I don't know. Anyway, my hopes were pretty much dashed from seeing those, but I was happy to return them. These absolutely repulsive trainers. I got my full refund of $35. Funnily enough, I went back a few days later and they were gone. Somebody had bought these things. It's one of the reasons why I don't feel too bad about, getting a refund from Vinny's or, one of these op shops. People are going to buy them anyway. People don't care if they're fake. They're just happy to say, like, I'm wearing these Balenciaga hard Crocs on my feet. Absolutely disgusting shoes. I say that as a man that has a pair of Crocs too. I was given them, and I remember getting given them, and you really shouldn't do this, but I literally said out loud, I hate them so much. Not the best thing to say when you get given a gift, but I wear them outside all the time. Not out in public. I'd never be seen out in public with them, but outside onto like, when I'm barbecuing and stuff, because they're easy to put on. Anyway, moving on. Another Vinny's find. I notice I've been going to Vinny's a lot more than I'm going to, say, Salvos. I find Salvos just junky. Every single Salvos I go into now just feels like junk. I don't know if that's because they're, doing the eBay lives now and they're keeping all that shit for themselves, or not for themselves, but for, their online selling. Vinny's just seems to be a bit better. Now, I don't have any hard data to back this up. I've just been having better luck in Vinny's. So I get into Vinny's, and this one sort of surprised me because we found something that's worth hundreds of dollars, and it was just sitting there in plain sight, right? And I almost walked straight past it, but there was one thing that kept me intrigued, or one thing that got me to go back to it. Now, it looked like cheap, outdated technology that I'd usually pass on, but I could see the Hasbro logo on the front, the old Hasbro logo. And whenever I see like vintage big brand items, I'm always going to go back, have a look, have a comp, see what it is. And I'm glad that I did because it was a winner. This was something called the iDog. This is Hasbro's iDog. Now, this is a robot dog that you can plug your iPod or your MP3 player into, and it's going to light up, it's going to dance, it's going to play your music. Now, when I say iPod and MP3 player, you immediately know that this thing is old, or at least, back from 2007. Which doesn't feel that long ago, but it was. This doggo, it wiggles its ears, it moves its feet, it tilts its head around, and for whatever reason, this thing became popular. So popular that it had variations, iterations were manufactured, including an iCat and an iFish. Now, the thing that surprised me the most about this iDog, which was inside of its original box, its sell-through rate. Like, people are actively looking for this product. I can see on eBay 84 active listings. How many sold? 189. And guess what? They're not cheap either. This thing outside of the box, I'm looking at sold listings right now for $94. I'm looking at another one, $116. This iDog is selling for a lot of money. And I'm looking at this $6 toy, and I can see that the twist ties, they're still attached inside of the box. I can see the sticky tape, it's on all the sides. This thing appears to be brand new. So I add the box onto the listing and I can see the brand new status. Sold listings for $266. What the hell? What the heck? Usually when I'm out and about, I take photos of $100 plus items so I can post them on the flipweekly.com newsletter. And then I'll take videos of like the more expensive stuff so I can use it on social media. I didn't video this iDog because I didn't expect it to be this high. We have potential to turn this $6 thing into $250. When I'm looking at these listings, people are so interested in them. I can see one that has like a rare color Apparently it's a rare color. That's what it says. It's like a yellowish one. $220, 57 people watching it. There's another one that's $120 with 48 people watching it. So people want this thing. This, for me, wasn't nostalgic. I don't remember seeing this back in the day, but it must have been everywhere, at least in the US. I do, have a few question marks about selling it here in Australia, or at least around the world outside of America. But when it's worth this much money, like when I have a sold comp for $250, I'm still going to buy it. I'm just going to wait and see what happens with it. But I do have to note, there's one thing about that sold listing for $266 that I'm basing mine on. The person opened the bottom of the box so they could take a photograph of the manual and the cables that were, sealed on the underside of it. I'm looking at mine, and the original sticky tape looks legit. No question marks about that. But I'm a tiny bit iffy because somebody's gotten a tape gun and taped the top down. So I'm not too sure about that tape on the top. I still think it's factory sealed, but I'm just wondering why somebody would do that. Either way, it's going up on eBay for $250. Oh, and by the way, man, I don't understand why moving fish, like why electronic moving fishes sell for a crazy amount of money. I said to you that this iDog had an iFish. That iFish is selling for so much money. There's like a sold comp here of it brand new for $500, a pre-owned one for $300. What is it about these electronic fish? You remember the big mouth billy bass that consistently sells for like $150? Like, what is it? Is it fishermen? Or is it like fish collectors? Is that a thing? Somebody please tell me why people love fish so much, like these electronic fish. I do not understand it. I would love to know. Moving on, it's something I completely forgotten about until I saw my family. And I said to you, I haven't seen them in such a long time. There's been work schedules, there's been personal things, there's been my goddamn car trouble. It's been a while, and I was able to see my mum, my aunt, my sister, brother-in-law, niece, nephew. This week, it was a good catch up. It wasn't for long. It was like 24 hours, which isn't much. But that's really all that everyone could give. I saw mum, and she had given back to me 2 street sharks. Now I'd completely forgotten about these street sharks. Back in January, I picked up the biggest street sharks collection ever. I paid like $500. I got so many different street sharks from it. 2 of those action figures had broken limbs. So I'd given mum these street sharks and asked them if she could fix the arms because I don't trust myself with glue. And she has done it. She has fixed them. She's a whiz with the glue. She repaired these action figures called Slugger, Slam Moo, and Night Fighter Trapdoor. Trapdoor? No, Trapjaw. She permanently glued their broken arms back into their body, so they do look cool, but their arms no longer move. Now, because of that, I'm going to sell them for a bit of a discount. Usually we could get close to $200 just for these 2 sharks. Like I'm looking at sold listings here, $140, $95, so over $200. Instead, I've listed them up together for $100, hoping for a quick sale. So I just want to give a quick shout out to mum for taking care of that and using the glue like a glue person. What does that even mean? Using the glue like a glue person. What a compliment. All right, next up, I didn't know whether or not to include these because I've pretty much completed this side quest of mine. I'll tell you about this a bit later. But I saw these Wiggles bobbleheads on Facebook Marketplace, and I'm just thinking to myself, what am I supposed to do? They're 4 vintage bobbleheads. They were up on Marketplace for 15 minutes. I know they're worth more than $35. Am I supposed to leave them? They're just up the road. I buy them. I think I was like, at the time, I'll gift them or give them away. I checked on eBay. The bobbleheads, if you want all 4 of them, which is what I got, if you buy them complete in box, they're over $1,000. They're not so much if they're loose. But I listed them up for $250. 35 into 250. If you want to see the photos, and I recommend checking the photos out because Greg, the original Greg bobblehead, he has a really creepy face. He's like staring down at you with this malicious smile. I recommend checking that out. But one last thing before we move on to what I sold, to the biggest flip of all time for me thus far. This last thing, and it's not crazy money, but I can feel myself getting closer to reaching a personal goal. And that is that last week I told you about my Holy Grail books. My Holy Grail books that you can find in a thrift store. One of them would be a first edition Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit. The oldest one that I've found so far in the wild was a 1974 set in a garage sale last year, 2025. This week I found a 1978 hardcover copy of The Fellowship of the Ring in a save. It's completely beaten up. It's been taped back together, but it feels like it adds to the charm. And it's also just one book from the box set, but it's worth at least $1,000 if the box set is complete. The sold listings for this one book aren't exactly impressive. It's a hardcover. It has the dust jacket. It's about $50 by itself, but my copy differs from those $50 listings because it still has a map attached to it in the back. And on eBay right now, if you want to complete this set, if you want to buy this book with the map, you need to pay at least $283. And trust me, Tolkien fans are going to pay that. But the reason I talk about this is it's not the value. Put that aside. I think we should just appreciate the fact that we can find hardcover vintage Tolkien books with the dust jacket, with the map attached to it, for $5 in a thrift store in 2026. Ever since I came across Tom Ayling's YouTube channel where he talks about rare books and manuscripts, this sort of stuff has just intrigued me. I am becoming more and more engrossed in rare books. And I just think we're getting closer and closer. Eventually, we're going to find our Holy Grail. Place your bets. How long until we find ourselves a first edition Hobbit or Lord of the Rings? And speaking of finding grails, I talked about the cookbooks or the cooking books, and a grail would be Anthony Bourdain's book, Signs. I found in the Savers. I didn't buy it, but I still found it. Marco Pierre White's autobiography. No, is it autobiography? No, it was his recipe book, White Heat. Paperback version in a Savers. You could probably get between $50 and $100 because it's the first edition. I didn't pick it up. I just looked for the signature. But that is also putting us closer towards finding that Anthony Bourdain signed book. Because I'd never seen this Marco Pierre White Heat before. It stood out to me. Somebody had donated all their old cooking books, and this was a part of it. And I mean, to be honest, finding these books doesn't put us anywhere closer. It's not like you're slowly building up to finding something. It's just, it's a sign. It's a sign from the universe, from the thrift gods, that one day we'll be able to find what we actually want, what we're looking for. But that's it. That's everything that I bought for the week. We're just going to move on, and we're going to move on to what I sold. And the very first thing that I'm going to talk about is my new biggest flip of all time. Let's get into it. Look, I'm going to be real with you. When I first started this thing, when I first started reselling, the items that I was picking up, they were pretty crap, right? Like I had no knowledge, I had no experience, and I was learning things the wrong way. But now I'm talking to you 2 years into it, and this next sale, this massive sale, it doesn't surprise me. It really doesn't surprise me because I obsess. I put in the time, I put in the energy, I put in the effort into learning what to buy, what to sell, that this sort of stuff just happens. I'm aiming for high value. I'm aiming for unique and interesting items that you don't see. That's what I get. I'm not cheating at this. I'm not cutting corners. I'm not begging people to buy my stuff. I'm not begging for support. I'm not begging for stock. The sourcing that I do is what anybody else in this reselling game can do. Anybody can do this, What I find, you can find. So without further ado, no more rambling. This is my highest selling individual flip of all time. We have sold the Wiggles CRT TV with remote for a total of $1,750. $1,750. I paid just $250 for this back in May. And you know what? I knew instantly, because of those 2 years of time and effort and learning, that this was going to be worth a lot more. I did my research, and the only one I could find was being displayed in the Powerhouse Museum. And by the way, what is that? Like our fifth item we've found that's being displayed in a museum? Is that a record? I don't know. No active listings, no sold listings. All I was going on was my gut feel, right? And I went and I picked it up late at night, and the guy was asking me the questions, so "You're a Wiggles fan?" And yeah, I just got out there as quickly as possible. But I got it home, the TV worked, the inputs worked, the remote worked, and the person that bought it, she has a son that's a Wiggles fan, and he's getting this as a birthday present. $250 into $1,750. I went back and forth with this woman over eBay messages. It was originally listed up for $2,500. Now, she messaged me and she said that she has a son who's turning 25 in July and is a huge Wiggles fan. She said she was interested in purchasing the TV for his birthday, but was wondering if I would accept $1,000 for it. Now, it's too low. I was never going to accept $1,000. You know, that's 60% off. And I said to her that the most I was going to offer was 20% off, which brought it down to, you know, an even $2,000. And I said, I completely understand if it's outside of her budget. Now, she came back for that. She was very friendly. This is a very friendly woman, probably mum of the year for getting such an expensive birthday present for her son. But she said, leave it with me. She said, I'll see how the budget can stretch. She asked if $1,500 would be possible. And then she said, apologies for misspelling your name. Because she spelt my name with 2 T's. Not that I was going to call her up on it. But I said, you know, it's okay for calling me Matt with 2 T's. And I said, I don't think I could do $1,500, but I'm flexible, you know. Maybe meet in the middle, somewhere in the middle, around $1,750. Now, 24 hours pass, and like most of these conversations on eBay when it comes to a high value item, I don't think too much of it, but she comes back at 8 p.m. at night and says, I would be happy to go $1,750. And you know what? I said yes. I'm going to do it. $1,750. And she replies back, amazing, Matt. So many exclamation marks. Thank you so much. I send through the custom offer. She replies back, thank you so much, Matt, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. You have just made a young boy, then in brackets, 24 years on the autism spectrum with significant development delay, very happy, in caps. Can't thank you enough. See, I could have replied the exact same thing. You know, you've made a young boy with developmental delays, very, very happy. Probably not okay to do that. Now, a few days pass, and she said to me, you know, I get a message from her, and this is what we sort of worry about. You get a message from your buyer. It's never a good notification. She just said, hello, all in exclamation marks. It arrived. I will send you some photos. Thank you so much for packing it so well. Oh man, by the way, packing this bloody thing, it was difficult. I got the heaviest, dutiest, boxiest thing that I could find. It was about at $10 from Bunnings, heavy duty packaging box. I got the TV, bubble wrapped the absolute crap out of it, put it in the box, surrounded it with foam. That's what I usually do with CRT TVs, even though I've only sold one in the past. Foam around it, and then I did butcher's paper around it, and then I folded up bubble wrap. You know, I rolled up some bubble wrap so they looked like, you know, like pipe bombs on the top of it. I did like 12 different pipe bombs on the top. Sealed it shut, whacked fragile stickers all over the place. You should be able to see a photo on flipweekly.com, or even in the podcast thumbnail. It might be in there. But I made sure that this was packed super tight. So when I got that notification saying the buyer had sent through a message, my only thought wasn't that it had broken on delivery. My thought was maybe the TV isn't working now. But she said, you know, he was super happy. She included photographs of her son with the television. It was just super cute, right? And I just said to her, like, I'm so relieved to hear that it arrived safely. And I'm happy that it's gone to somebody who is going to cherish this thing. And I said, thanks so much for sending through the photos. It made my day. I was filled with joy, man. This thing is just the rarest item that I've ever sold, the most expensive item that I've ever sold. So I was relieved it arrived safely. I was just so happy to see it in somebody else's hands. She said to me, more than welcome. I promise it's in very good hands. She sent through a couple of love hearts. So I think, you know, we might have a thing going on. But $250 into $1,750. Like, it took me 21 months of reselling to have a $1,600 flip back in November 2025. You know, the Sonic books. It's taken me just 7 months to beat that record. And you know what that is? That's proof that we're getting better at sourcing high value items. And thanks to that $1,700 sale, our average sale price for the month is like absurdly high. Like it's over $250. So that makes me happier again. But man, what an amazing sale. $250 into $1,750. Now, I've talked about my marketplace strategy a couple of podcast episodes back. Go back and listen to that. It's very, very simple. Anybody can do this. It's just a matter of opening up marketplace and getting lucky, really. That's all it is. You need to, have some strategy in place. But once you've got that in place and you know what you're doing, you could do this too. Anyone can do this. It's not rocket science, right? But moving on. Let's move on. We're going to leave that behind. Everything else is going to pale in comparison, but they're all over $100. But they're not $1,700. Our next sale, we have sold the Skylanders storage box for $250. Now, this was a marketplace pickup with a huge bundle of Skylanders stuff. I paid $140 for it, and we've made so much money from this deal. I'll be creating a short video about it soon once the final Skylanders listing has sold. We only have one left. It's listed up for, $250. It has multiple people watching, so fingers crossed it happens soon. I've been working on that video for, how long has this Skylanders stuff been going on for? At least a month, right? But like Skylanders, it's funny, I relied entirely on a quick Google Lens lookup when I bought this bundle. I knew nothing about Skylanders. And since doing like that very small bit of research, I've come to find that so few of these things are worth any money, at least, to us when we're aiming for $100 plus sale price. I'm still doing quick digs when I find Skylanders in the wild, how very rare it is. But it's always the same generic characters, like the big bulky ones. They look like they should be worth $100, but they're usually worth like $5-10, not even worth buying after eBay fees and shipping. But anyway, the storage container that holds these trap crystals, something to keep an eye out for, along with those individual traps. If you don't know what any of that means, just go to flipweekly.com and check out the newsletter, and you can see what the storage box and those traps look like. But while you do that, here's something that I can tick off my bucket list, and that's selling one of the most expensive PlayStation 2 games on the market. Now, this was bought for just $8. We have sold Silent Hill 2 on the PlayStation 2 for $250 via Facebook Marketplace. Now, I found this really rare, highly sought after game on Facebook Marketplace just by asking a seller if they had any more video game stuff they didn't want. This person had a PlayStation 4 listed up for $80. I didn't really want the PlayStation, but I sent her a message because they had just listed up a Guitar Hero game just before, saying, do you have any more stuff? I noticed you've listed them up. She sent me through something that made my jaw drop. It was like 2 whole boxes of PlayStation 1 games and rare PlayStation 2 and 64, all that sort of shit. All that sort of stuff. And I committed to buying that PS4 for $80 because I wanted to touch all of this unlisted stuff. And that's how I got Silent Hill 2 on the PlayStation 2 for $8, sold for $250. Like, seriously, go back and listen to that podcast episode and go to flipweekly.com to see the photos, because from that deal, we only have 2 listings left, and that's Silent Hill 3 for $300 and Forbidden Siren for $250. Now, that's on PlayStation 2. And to think, all we had to do was ask. That's the power of the ask is what they always say. But next, a gamble that paid off. I really shouldn't be gambling in this category because I don't know too much about it. I'm not too familiar with it. So I shouldn't be gambling, but I did. We have got a $100 sale for a very, very old Qantas employee jacket. Now, I bought 2 of these really heavy, like unusually heavy Qantas jackets for $15 from Salvos, and I posted them on a Qantas collectors group, and everybody there sort of gushed over them, so I knew we had a winner. Everyone there seemed to remember their parents or grandparents wearing this thing. So this is a 10-day turnaround for a jacket. Like, that seems pretty good, no? So I've listed the other one up for $150 just to see how it goes. The downside to this jacket is that they're bulky, they're heavy, and they cost around $20 to ship. But anyway, $15 into $100 just on a Qantas jacket. Clothing sellers, watch out! I'm coming for you. Ugh. So fucking lame. No, so lame. So hecking lame. Anyway, next sale. I didn't talk about buying this because I thought you might be bored of me mentioning them, but I have to mention the sale. I found on Facebook Marketplace a brand new and sealed Meta Oculus Quest 2. I paid $200 for it. I had messaged after it had been live for about 35 minutes. And to me, this is like one of the easiest flips because this was 10 minutes from my place. It was brand new and sealed, so I don't have to mess around with pulling it out and photographing each piece. The sell-through rate is insanely high for these VR units, and this $200 pickup sold in 1 day for $500 via eBay. That's right, 1 day. Listed on the 21st, sold on the 22nd. And look, I'm familiar with these VR headsets because I've sold them like 3 or 4 times in the past, and I knew that the market is like trending upwards. There's a massive price difference now between new and used. Like you can buy a used MetaQuest 2 right now on eBay for $200, but for whatever reason, maybe it's like hygienic reasons or brand new just fetches a massive premium because after my sale for $500, the cheapest you can get this Meta Oculus Quest 2 on eBay this very moment is $1,000. It's crazy, yes, but it has people watching it. So not that crazy, right? Anyway, pretty cool to turn 200 into 500 in just a single day. Oh, and by the way, man, the buyer of this lived like legit 10 minutes up the road. And I was looking into like hand delivering it because these are sort of big and bulky and they need to go into an extra large box to ship off. But a lot of people online were advising against it, because you don't have that tracking number and there's no local pickup or drop off option. So you're opening yourself up to being scammed. But what do you think? Would you have dropped this off if it's 10 minutes up the road without having local pickup or local drop off as an option? I decided against doing that, but for a minute there, it was on my mind. Now that's all I've got for you this week. Thanks again for tuning in. Thank you to everyone who had checked out Flip Weekly's Compass, flipweekly.com/compass, having a play around with that. Make sure you check out the newsletter at flipweekly.com for any photos of items that are bought and sold this week. And check out Flip Weekly on social media for a video of the Wiggles TV that will be going live right now. Thank you once again. I'll see you again next week. Have a great week.
Flip, 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 flip.
Flip Weekly.